Surrounded by bones, bodies and blood, he knew that he had not won in this battle. All he could see was the chieftain of his warrior clan. He was a boy who was much older than his years, mature, strong in his arms and his heart. But he would never admit to this. But when he thought about his brother and his father, who had died in battle before him, then a tear, a small, salty, silvery tear, would run its way down the side of his cheek. At the top of his head, he had a sharp golden helmet. It pushed down his chunky blonde hair. He had a round face, just like his father's. He had a dimpled chin, just like his father and his brother. But as he looked about with his pale brown eyes, he knew that this was a battlefield where he had lost. It was a great dishonour to leave the battlefield still alive, but there was nothing else that he could do. All of his enemies had gone. They'd left the field as it was, and here they were on the soft silky sand where the sea ran red with the blood. There were scattered swords and shields all about this place, and in the distance all he could see were the slippery, snowy mountains. His red flowing cloak, he pulled it about himself, and he couldn't fight the air, and he was wounded himself. And the only thing that he could think of doing was to go away from there and perhaps live to fight and die another day. This was a boy who dreamt of chasing dragons, who saw Thor, the good and great god Thor, as someone that he would try to be like. He was older than his years, but he was sensible. At least if he could recover, then he could fight another day. And all he had to stop the blood was a smooth, soft cloth that had been drenched at one other time with his father's own blood. And he thought that if he were to clamp it to the wound, then he would get some of his father's strength inside of his own blood. His heavy wooden shield had not helped him. His small scratched sword was no use now when there was no one left to fight. Everyone thought of him as a hero. They regarded him like he was a hero. But would they have thought of him as a hero as someone who had walked away from a battlefield and left it behind? But the wound was really hurting. He could not think of what to do. He tried to hold back the tears when he wondered what his father would have said to him. But as he reached inside of his cloak, he found some medicine, a salve of herbs that his brother had made for him when his brother had still been alive. He went up the mountain, up the slippery, snowy slopes, and found himself in a cave. He was fearful, worried that he should die before he had a chance to fight. But there was only one of him and many of these other clansmen who had come to this place. You knew that they were there because they had brought their short wooden longboats, so different from his own clan. But on this icy mountain, there was a cold chill that went through his skin and right to his bones and his heart. Look. He would go and steal and pillage from the heathen Christians so that he could give to the poor in his own village. He found a cave. It was wet. He was cold. And he was worried that he would die before he had a chance to avenge his father, his brother, his clan chief, and all of the people inside of his village. He didn't know what he could do. But he had a candle that he could light by striking a stone against the side of his sword, which would cause a spark. The spark would become a flame, and the flame would... And it was then that it occurred to him. Oh, this enemy clan that had come to this place were now relishing in their victory. So they were not looking after their short wooden longboats. When he was better, when he was well, the very next morning, he looked about. There they were, lying there, drunk by the side of the dying fires. He rested upon his heavy wooden shield, and it held his weight. And even though the wound stung as the salt water went inside of it, he could smell victory in his own nostrils. He sculled his way towards their boats. He'd made sure that he'd kept some tinder, some small pieces of moss and fern, wrapped up and inside and dry. With no one to look after their long ships, he got on board quite easily. The stone and his sword, he struck them together. The spark went into the tinder, he blew upon it. The smoke became a flame, and the flame, it leapt into the wood of the longships. To the next one, to the next one. Oh, he did his job well. He might not have died upon the field of battle, but he had lived to fight another day. These strangers would be left there far away from their own homes, left there with no ships to take them home, left there with nothing and no one to support him. He would find another clan. He would teach them his own skills, for he was older than his years and he had learned a lesson. Sometimes when he would sit by the side of the fire, he would see his father and his brother, and they would talk to him. Stay strong. Stay strong. Be brave. Be as brave as Thor and never give up. And he was so pleased that he hadn't given up.